Hello and welcome to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. Today I'm at home completing a project rendering birch oil. If you'll stick with me, we'll go through it step by step. This is a river birch tree that I have in my front yard. I'm very happy to have this resource available to me. So I'm going to collect some of this bark up and use that to help me complete this project. Alright, this is the container that I'm going to use to hold my birch bark. This will be the top container. And whenever you poke your hole in this for the oil to drain out, it's important to do it from the inside out. That will create almost like a little spout for your birch oil to drip out into your catchment container. So I'm just going to put this about dead center here, and then I'm just going to push down, creating a little bit of a spout. You can see what that looks like. Hopefully from the side you can see it comes out like that, and it will make it drip right down into the catchment container. Now the next step in this process is to go ahead and pack this top container with the birch bark, and I went ahead and collected up a bag of that off the tree that I showed you. And when you pack this stuff in, you want to pack it as tight as you can as to get as much of the bark in the container as possible. You want to pack it almost literally until it's busting at the seams. It does take quite a bit of bark to get any decent amount of oil, especially with river birch. That's all I'm doing here is just stuffing this container as tight as I possibly can. Now that I've got the can packed as tight as I can get it, I'm going to squeeze that top on. You want to make sure that that top is nice and tight, because in the process of burning this, if your top should pop off or crack, that will ruin the process, as it'll just burn up your bark. So you want to make sure you have a nice secure fit with your container. If you pack it too full and that top comes off, you'll have to start over again. Whenever you render birch oil, you'll want to bury your catchment container until the rim of the container is even with the level of the ground surrounding it. Whenever I'm rendering birch oil, I always try to use a larger container on the top to hold more bark, and I use a smaller container in the ground to catch the oil. And the reason that works well is because the larger container helps to cover the smaller container very well and keeps the dirt from the ground and the ash from the fire from getting into my birch oil. If that does happen, it's not a big deal. You can always strain it out, but if I can prevent that, it makes life just a little bit easier. If you're improvising with your containers, you just use what you got and go with it. In this case, I went to the Dollar Tree back around Christmas time, and for $2 I got the perfect containers. They had a small, medium, and a large. I bought the large and the medium, and they literally fit together perfect. So for $2 I got the perfect containers to go through this with. Anyway, again, improvise with what you got unless you can find the perfect containers again. So the next step in this process is to kind of fill in this hole around my catchment container, help insulate it from the fire. That way when the birch oil does drip down in there, it can start to cool off. Also, this will help to hold my bark container in place. Should do. So I've gone ahead and buried those two containers in a nice fire lay. All I need to do now is ignite that and let the heat do the work. Since this is my home fire pit, I get to use this primitive lighter. I made a couple of feather sticks I put down in here. That should do the job. Now we just have to burn this stuff up and wait. As you go through this process, you want to be very careful as you add larger fuel to your fire, as it'd be very easy to knock that top container with the bark in it off of the bottom and therefore losing all your birch oil. So it is a delicate process. Be careful as you're putting that fuel on your fire. Alright, as you can see, I've let my fire die down. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of pull all these coals back away from the container and let this stuff start to cool off. There's a lot of heat coming off of this. This is going to take it a little bit to cool off, I'm sure. You want to, again, be careful not to do anything that might knock that container down. That should do. Alright, I've waited about 45 minutes to an hour now, and this stuff has cooled off what I think is plenty good enough so that I can get to this birch oil and see how we did here. So I'm just going to slowly and carefully scrape this dirt away. Get down below the rim of my catchment container. I can still see the Christmas designs on it. You can see I'm holding my top container in place just so I don't make a mistake. Get a bunch of dirt in my oil down there. Alright, that should work. Well, it's a lot of work for a little bit of oil. It's probably going to be just enough to do what I want to do with it. Hopefully you can see that down in there. And river birch, while you can get good oil from the river birch, it doesn't give you as much as other types of birch. And you can see when I look at that closely, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see on the camera, but there's a little bit of water in there, just a little bit of a clear liquid, and then of course the rest is the actual birch oil itself. If I were to use a larger container, maybe if I would have burned it a little longer, I might would have got some more oil. But rendering this stuff down is it's definitely a process, and to get a significant amount, you'll have to go through that process multiple times. So this is the inside of the char tin. This is what's left of that river birch bark. It literally feels like it has no weight to it. All the moisture and all the oils and everything are totally gone out of here. It's just charred flakes left. That way I know, by looking at this, I know that I extracted all the oil that was possible to get out of this. You can see here how the bottom of the can functioned. Since we poked that hole from the inside coming out, you can see how that created a dripping point for the oil. So now that I've finished this, I'm going to collect it up in this small spice bottle. And this really puts it into perspective how valuable this stuff really is. Some of it's real thick. It's kind of stuck to the side of the wall of the can. But anyway, you can see just how little that rendered. I'll probably go back through this process another couple times, get this level up in this bottle a little bit, but a little bit goes a long way. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in for this video on how to render birch oil. In my next video, I'm going to demonstrate using this oil to complete another project, which is why I actually went through this process today of rendering it to start with. And I'll talk about some of the other uses that you may have for birch oil as well. I appreciate you guys tuning in for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I hope that you will, and hope you'll come back often, as I look forward to talking to you with another video as soon as possible. And until then, take care, and as always, God bless.